Hello and welcome to our 22nd episode of Duels Across the Stars, where we will be ranking Star Trek and Star Wars. And today we're going to be doing an episode that I've been wanting to do since we named the title Duels Across the Stars. And that is our top five duels. And how many times can I say duels in one go? A lot. So let's avoid that for a second. And the two people who are going to be doing that today is me, Ben Carno, and my co-host with the most S is.
Oh, Olympus and Jules.
Search edit there. And anyway, no, as a certain person doing the editing, it probably won't be. So anyway, um, where are we going with this one? So
So
let's do
this
the intro
is,
first.
yeah, this is top five Jules. You've been really excited to do this. I have been really excited to do this. I'm surprised it wasn't really one of our first ones, considering the title of it. But yeah, we're finally there with episode 22. Um, Before we get into anything else, though, guys, if you haven't already and you are enjoying our content, please do take the couple of seconds to like and subscribe. But more importantly, please get involved in these conversations. Add some comments below if you're on YouTube, and get involved and share. What your top five jewels are. What do you think about the choices that we're going through? All that good stuff.
Definitely agreed. As you've worked out, we're on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. At the moment, I'm not sure if you can find us on the other platforms, but uh, if you can, I know we have updated that once, but we're not paying for anything, so you may not. But anyway, you can definitely find us on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Positive where you can find us, not where you can't. So you can't find us on an exotic island either. Yeah, you can just find us on sunny Britain. So there we are. Before we get totally distracted, we do a little thing called rules before here. So we set our own rules. We don't make that as a whole podcast, as a whole show. This is personal rules of, let's say, what jewels are, or even anything else for that matter. Um, so, Olympus, what are your personal rules for picking your top five?
So I decided to take the definition of duel, which there are a couple. So I took the two and sort of squashed them together. So I'm going with the definition being a contest or battle with deadly weapons arranged between two people, often in order to settle a point of honor with witnesses. And I will, over the course of my coming five choices, use that more as a guideline than an actual rule, as a certain pirate may be quoted from Pirates of the Caribbean. Um, and I will break several elements of that guideline as I go through them.
Fair enough. That sounds about right for me, because I did also check up the definition exactly, and most of the time it was one person versus one person, but there was like a group thing that it was referring to. Uh, and for me, I near as damn it. Actually, for this one, I actually did keep it to one on one, but I did consider a couple of ones which were like one on two, or where there was like two people dueling uh, separately, but in the same uh, section. And the one definition, I that's a bit flexible. What the one is, so we'll get to that when we get to that. So,
Okay, okay.
but I try to keep it to that definition, and that had to be the focus of what was going on in that scene or section of the
Mhm.
show. So it wasn't. If it was just a little bit or part of a bigger sequence, I tended to avoid it. Anyway,
Makes
ruffling
sense.
stuff, ruffling on. Um, so we get straight to the point. Then,
Before we do, Ben, do we share any of our choices with each other ahead of recording?
or we haven't so far, unless we suddenly forget to. record the audio for me, and then we suddenly, I know about half, you know about half of mine, and I know about half of yours. But
I've never lived that
as of
down.
this recorded, we have not shared.
Lovely. We do that on purpose. It really helps it feel a little bit more genuine, and it comes as a very nice surprise for each of us as we go through those picks. And for me, it means that our responses are more genuine, they're more fluid, they're, I guess, in a way, a bit reactionary off the cuff responses as well, which it just feels more fluid. How many times can you say fluid in a sentence? There you go, Jules and fluid today. I we seem to be in a bit of a rambly mood, so yeah, Ben, let's move and get into our top our number five. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
Oh, go on, let's go. I'll go first then. Um, I'm going to go to one. I've tried to make it a bit varied with some of my picks as well, in different types of duels, and I suppose this is one of the reasons why this one's stayed in, as well as the consequences after. Um, and this is from The Mandalorian, and this is between Bo-Katan Kree and a gent called Axe Wolves, and I realised I didn't know his name until I looked it up. This was
Oh,
over ruler of the Mandalorians. I was about to say over the Dark Saber, but it wasn't over the Dark Saber at the time. The Dark Saber, oops, I'm going to say got awarded this time because I believe it was given the other time, but there's more awarded this time for her uh, uh, actions on Mandalore. But this wasn't on Mandalore. This was a duel between one leader, the new potential previous leader slash uh, new leader to come, which you can see where this is coming from. But yeah, this is instead of two lightsabers or just guns at dawn or pistols at dawn. This is all the stuff that comes with the Mandalorian, whether that's your backpack and it just involved everything. And it was interesting seeing how Mandalorians duel and fight between
mm-hmm.
each other. I know we've been getting bits of Mandalorian fighting slowly drip fed until the Mandalorian, and slowly, slightly more drip fed through that. Them fighting each other. Uh, well, it was actually it was very fun. It had the consequences, was to solve the consequences, and this is not quite to solve dishonor, but it was to solve a situation. And I can imagine this is how Mandalorians. Well, not, I don't have to imagine. I've seen it. This is how Mandalorians deal with problems, issues, leadership values, almost like the Klingons in a way. Um, on a ship, talking about the other franchises, yeah, they sort it by power and their skill.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much more to say so at the moment, but Olympus, any thoughts?
No, I love, but apart from the fact that I absolutely love that you chose that, I didn't think of it. And I now need to go away and rewatch that episode because it was one of the better episodes in that season, if I remember right. Um, and you know you can't say no to more Bo-Katan Grease. Brilliant. I honestly cannot add anything else to that. So my number five. This is immediately breaking a couple of the rules within the definition. As I say, it's a guideline.
Right away, come on.
Right away, right from the offset. And that is, I've picked the Battle of the Binary Stars, which right away you go, that's a battle, that's not a duel. But there's at least two, potentially more, different elements that are going on within that battle that you could probably define as a duel of some sort. So, for starters, and probably the one that I'm going with most here, is the rather fluffy concept that you're probably going to tear apart, that this is a duel between Starfleet and the Klingons. First and foremost, they are testing each other out. Um, they are figuring out each other's weaknesses, their strengths. They are essentially doing a sort of honor test from the Klingon side of things, and the Federation fail it. And all war breaks out as a result. That screams duel to me. Extremely high level, but it is. And
Yeah, it sounds like a duel from a certain point of view.
from a certain point of view, yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm going to keep with that piece because you could also talk about the conflict between Burnham and Giorgio. There's definitely, it might not be pew pew with, well, actually, Giorgio does shoot her, to be fair. But it wasn't meant to be a pew pew duel, but definitely a duel of the minds, with Burnham challenging her authority and her leadership, and how Georgia responds to that. You've got the conflict between Takuvma and the leadership on the Klingon side. That could certainly be defined as a duel as well. Him challenging their honor, surrounding how they should be coming together. And is it 12 houses, Ben? Keep me honest here. 12
That
Klingon
sounds about
houses.
right. I could be wrong, but it sounds about right.
Yeah, you've got Burnham's one-on-one duel with the Klingon on top of the Klingon beacon that you could go into as well. A very, very short duel.
Yeah,
But a duel
that's the one I
nonetheless.
thought you were going to actually pick when you said Battle of the Binary Stars. That's where I thought you were going.
Yes, yes, one of many. So I know instead of picking one here, I've taken a battle and I'm throwing out several.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got the admiral who turns up for the Federation, and
Anderson, maybe?
something like that. I can't. Yeah, it could be Addison, and you could argue it's a job between him and Takuma. Again, very short before his ship is ploughed into by one of those. I think it's called a cleave ship. Cleave's quite an apt name for that. There's probably a couple of others as well. So there's a variety of different duel type scenarios going on across the Battle of the Binary Stars. And it's also such a beautiful setting, gorgeous visuals. For the very start of a brand new Star Trek series, to kick that off with a two-part that ultimately results in all war breaking loose and having a battle on such a scale on your screens is breathtaking and shocking at the same time. Yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights of the Discovery series for me.
It was a brave and interesting way to start the series, basically. Some people poo-pooed it, said this is not Star Trek and this is not the thing, but I suppose it was a way of showing how we get to what Star Trek is about. Universal peace, especially in Federation, and this is how we got there. Okay, it was basically started by a Federation citizen and Starfleet personnel, but Klingons always been the bad guys, or not always. They've been the bad guys for that time period, especially, and then periodically on and off from there.
Yeah.
So it was okay. You had to have somebody who started lit the fuse, and for better or worse, you had that conflict between the people. Okay, it's not Gene Roddenberry's vision, but it's lots. I've been on that topic before, but that's a way you would have lost a lot of good series and episodes if we kept completely to that ideal. But that's not the point. It was the journey from getting there to the end, which actually I thought was quite fun. Actually, I enjoyed it. Um, them eventually working together, going from the equivalent to Detmer and Burnham, who look Detmer gave Burnham when she appeared on the bridge of the Enterprise that time. It was just like
Yeah,
to where they ended up afterwards was I thought was worth the journey,
yeah,
the story.
absolutely. I've got nothing much else to add on the Battle of Binary Stars if you don't. Okay, on to your number 4, Ben.
In that case, I'm going to stay with TNG or go to TNG. Um, and this one is going to be a different type of duel. And this is going to be Data versus Korami in a game of Stratagema. Um,
Yes.
so this is the rematch. So you had two ones where Data tries his best to beat him and loses and realize and goes, I should not. This, I mean, if I lose this, this means there's something wrong with me. And you have a lot of the episode going him basically getting grumpy that he's uh, not that makes mistakes. But after I believe a pet talk from Picard saying yes, it's reasonable that you can do something, can not necessarily you can do everything right, but still fail. I'm getting butchering that quote, but it it was like, look, you can do everything right, but that doesn't mean you fail. Doesn't mean you. That's still. I got the quote wrong
The
completely.
quote is, "It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness, that is life."
Precisely.
It's one of my
Like my
favourite quotes in
mistakes.
TNG, and I will not pretend to know it off by heart because I butcher it every time too. But it's one of my favourites.
Yeah. Like me, I'm perfect with everything. I'm still fail. Okay, still lose occasionally. Anyway, jokes aside, it got to a rematch where he was battling against this person and dueling against this person, and he actually changed his strategy to not necessarily to try to win, but try to get it into a stalemate. Uh, this game, which actually worked and made the other person frustrated because they weren't basically we believe they weren't getting anywhere, and by default and at least human standards, that means he won. So yeah, so he won that duel, and it is that episode where you have the little finger things,
Yeah,
three
they
little
slot them
square
on,
things.
don't they, onto the thingies, and it's like
I'm not 100% sure of the point, but I'm presuming you're pressing on squares when you're doing that, but I don't know.
pass. But it looks cool.
It does look cool. So, other than being one of your involving one of your favourite quotes, any thoughts on that one?
Second pick from you that I wouldn't have thought of and is absolutely phenomenal. You're knocking this out of the park today. Um,
Oh, thank you.
oh no, you are. It's again. You've done that so much justice. The whole message and the growth that Data gets in that episode through that guidance from Picard, especially, it really helps with Data's character development. Um, I just think it's funny because if I remember right at the end, after he beats the Zacton, um, everyone's like, "Data, you beat him, you won." And he's like, "No, I didn't. I didn't actually win. I did this." It's like, "You won. Take the win." Like, but I didn't win.
Oh,
Um,
and eventually going, I'd done him up or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um,
was so nice, and again, it shows that gelling with the cast and the characters
yeah.
too. So no,
Yeah, so this was
beautiful.
the second season episode, and the main reason I know that because it involved Pulaski, who was the Doctor in season
Oh
two. So,
yeah, and
um,
going on a tangent again, but Lasky at the start of season 2, I really disliked, and I think they made that happen on purpose because of her. It's not even disdain or hatred, but her lack of any sort of thought or emotion towards Data. He was basically a machine, a tool, and that was it. By the end of the season, she's really turned a corner and she sees him in a much different light.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and yeah, that does appear to be that conversation compared to the one with them doing the Sherlock Holmes episode.
Yeah.
There is completely opposite, and I don't know. Obviously, a deliberate one, I presume, because that was they grew as that, and you had Data grow over the years. And there was an episode where they were against the Romulans, and he had to he took the initiative to drop back because he managed to work something out. Go, I have to break formation to actually succeed. Because I'm not going to go as far as saying a hunch, but a uh, calculated strategy. Because it was like, I've got a theory. I'm pretty sure it's right. Let's give it a try. And I was getting told off by Picard when that was happening. Not afterwards, and by his second in command. At the time, it's just like, yeah, you're not following orders. Follow orders, no. And it was just like, yeah, no, he has grown, and I think that's helped. I didn't think about it at the time, but definitely helped. But
Oh,
yeah, that duel was a bit funny. It was a lot of fun actually.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What a pick. My
And
number 4, we're going to stick with Star Trek. But we're going to go to Picard season 3 and take a look at what I'm calling either the Titan versus the Shrike or Riker versus Vadic. So very specifically, it probably goes over technically probably 3 episodes, but let's say 2 episodes. That second episode being the one with the cute little baby jellies at the end, which is just pure Star Trek all through. It was glorious. I love that episode. But you really have this cat and dog kind of posturing between Vadic and the Shrike and Riker / Picard in the Titan. And Picard, I'm trying to think of the right way to describe this, is he's uncharacteristic in a sense here. He's too gung ho. He's too blunt and brutal and quick to react without thinking, which isn't what the Picard that we know from TNG is like. So you could say that a lot of that's down to his age at this point, which it probably is. And it ultimately results in the Shrike taking a passive victory with the Titan sort of swirling into the depths of this big nebula thing, but basically dead in the water and going to be crushed in X number of hours. And Riker's scary comment to Picard of get off my bridge, you've killed us all, and the whole seriousness behind that, which you've never really heard between Riker and Picard before. So it creates a lot of pressure and a lot of tension. But in true Star Trek style, the crew finds their place again. They make up. They work together as a team. They find a solution to get the Titan back up and powered. And just as they're flying out of this nebula to safety, there's the Shrike waiting for them, ready to dart in and jump for the kill. And Riker, in a stroke of either genius, desperation, or probably both, goes,
Moopsie.
you gets an asteroid or a comet or whatever type of rock debris with the tractor beam and flings the thing at the Shrike, completely knocking it clear and disabling it, which was utterly beautiful to watch. And a total win in that duel between him and Vadik, which is why I call it, even though Picard's involved in quite a chunk of that, that's why I call it the Riker Vadik duel. Because
It's fair enough.
yeah, it's very much between them. I just thought it was a piece of creative genius. I absolutely loved it, and it was very Riker as well. He always thought outside the box. So when we had
we had that before as well in the episode I mentioned. So
yes,
coming up with something different strategy.
exactly that. Totally different. So there's a theme. There's a theme we're starting to build here. Oh my word! I'm not going to ruin anything, but my number 3 also involves a strategy change. But more on that shortly.
Ooh. Well, I like your pick. Definitely, it's not one I've thought about, and to be honest, I forgot about a lot of the stuff in season 3 there too for a lot of my picks. So it's again, I know you're saying that to me, but that one it was just like, I didn't think about that one. So I'm repeating you there almost. My one for number 3, if you don't mind,
Go for it.
Basically similar to my number 5. It's almost a fight for power, but it's instead of being Martok versus Gowron, which it should have been, it's Wolf versus Gowron.
Yeah.
In Deep Space Nine. Basically, they started feeding this plot that Gowron was almost jealous of Martok's, or scared of Martok's power and how much he was succeeding, and afraid he would overturn him. And he's basically making all these stupid military decisions, semi-deliberately, semi that he's not really a military leader. And I know most Klingons do have a military / fight naturally to them, but this was him just being rubbish, and Martok would not, or any of the other Klingons around him would not stand against him. It's like, we're going to be honourable, we're going to go with what we're told, and we're going to fight whatever the battle. Other than Worf, who eventually gives in and goes, no, we're not. You're being a complete
Moopsie.
And we're going to, it's like, no, we're not. And you have that one, like I was referring, the Bo-Katan Axe conversation, was we're going to fight for a position here. I think you're wrong. I got to defend my position from Gowron's point of view, and Worf's got to fight for that to go. Yeah, you're wrong, and I will defend that, and I will defend the Klingon Empire, the Federation. And I don't know if it was the Romulans at that stage, but everybody, the whole area of that Alpha Quadrant, Beta Quadrant area, to go, we will defend this by stopping you from being an idiot. And that it wasn't a very long fight, it wasn't a very long show, but it was very important and very good. You had the little bit of fighting with the Battlers, and then one of them broke Worf's, and he gets the two ends of it. I was always like is it a Matlef? I forgot the exact word now. I'm having my blank. But basically, he has the two ends, almost like that. Basically defends himself, and somehow, even though his hands are up there, gets thrown upwards from Gowron's back there through a strategically placed glass screen.
Well,
And just as Gowron's,
you've got a
yeah.
glass smash in the middle of a fight.
Oh, definitely. Gowron goes for a big swing over his head to him, and then just as Gowron got to the apex, it's like stabs him in the heart and or chest or somewhere in him, and actually nearly becomes emperor himself, but actually passes it over to the person who actually deserved it, Bartok. And yeah, it was another like a jostle for power there. This was not far off your traditional swords at dawn, but instead of swords, it's batleths at dawn kind of battle. So that's another one that I think's very close to actual what duels are on Earth back in the day.
Yeah, and a couple of points I'll add to that. Gowron was not a tactical, battle-hardened warrior. His strength was never in war tactics and how to win, a large-scale war. He was much more, I'd say, sleek-it, vindictive. He was much more political. Let's put it that way. He was much more of a political creature, and very unusual for a Klingon to be like that. And I think that's spoken volumes back in TNG as well, when you have the Klingon Civil War kicking off, and Gowron, needs the support and that lower level leadership through Worf and his family, through some of the other Klingon families to win the day. And expose the whole Romulan thing, which I think, if I remember right, leads back to that episode that you were talking about with the Romulan.
Yeah, that was another one where they teamed up.
Yeah, everything's tying up. The other thing that I would say is sometimes the best duels, the best fights are the shortest ones, and they tend to be the deadliest ones too. They're not drawn out, they're quick, they're sudden, and they hit very, very hard from not just in a physical fighting sense, but also from a plot sense and a character tie-up point of view, character development point of view too. And I'd say that was also very strongly, to segue very nicely into my number 3, is very strongly the sense that you get in the duel between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul in Star Wars Rebels. Which, yes. So Maul finds Kenobi in Rebels, and this is the Star Wars creators tying the ribbon and closing off that chapter, or the entire story, I should say, for Darth Maul. He finds Kenobi on Tatooine, challenges him immediately. They prepare to fight. Maul's got his lightsaber at the ready. Obi-Wan kicks off with his usual stance, with one hand out, the other hand up behind him. And then he changes stance. And this is all very, very strategic here, right? And very, very intelligent. He changes stance to Qui-Gon Jinn's, which references straight back to the Phantom Menace. Your heartstrings tug right away. It's like, oh my god, you're channeling your master who this guy murdered. It's like, oh, don't let the same thing happen to you. Knowing obviously it doesn't. And then something really interesting happens. Maul moves straight into strike with what I'm pretty sure is the same attack that he used against Qui-Gon. And Obi-Wan flips his positioning, changes his stance in a split second, and kills Maul. And the duel, from the moment Maul starts moving towards Obi-Wan, probably lasts about a second and a half. And it's over.
Yes. Yeah, to be honest, I thought my first 3 picks were very short, but this lasted no more than a couple of minutes each, and yeah, that does out. Yeah,
Oh yeah, it's
that
it's
does.
it's it's a lot of posturing from Maul at the start. Then you get that second or two, and then it's Maul basically finally letting go before he passes away. Um, and I just love what Obi-Wan does because he's learned from the Phantom Menace. He's learned through his experiences since then, the fall of the Republic, etc. And he knows exactly how to play Maul by that at that point and what he has to do, and he does it. So it's both a beautiful and very sad scene at the same time. And again, one of those very classic actual duel scenarios. Two people with weapons fighting it out to the death.
No, agreed. And I'm not going to say that's the first. Yeah, I suppose that's the first one I've really seriously thought from your one is which would probably fit into my story, into my rules.
Yeah, don't worry, I don't go
And
too far out from here on in. Pretty much the
oh,
rest of
by all
my
means,
choices are very traditional duel now. Battle of the
oh,
Binary Stars
go
was
away.
obviously a stretch, but the Titan versus Shrike, Riker versus Vadik was more of the outside of the box thinking on my part. I took inspiration from Riker.
Whereas me, as I'm almost gone in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Actually, it's as mine's going to get less traditional as we go along. But
So this is the middle
yeah,
point,
no,
mate. This is where we've met in the middle, and now we're about to go in opposite directions again.
yeah, and yeah, my number 2 fight is more of a fight than a duel. Um, More of a barroom fight, to be honest. And yeah, this is from, I think it's still the most recent Star Wars series, The Acolyte, which
Yeah.
I know got some hate and whatever. But this one is the first fight we see, or in this case, a duel we see. And we have May uh, go and ask Master and Dara, fighter, and yeah, this was almost this is her almost getting ready to have a duel. It's like I've got my feet. I suppose this one still is very technically a duel, but it's like yeah, I've got to defend my honor and what you did to my family, and everything, and you have this after her fighting her by attacking everybody else in around her table. Is the fight is you have a slow reaction one, and Dara is gradually moving out the way, holding her with her hands. A very different type of Star Wars fight. And I'm saying that deliberately for this one, because when I say fight, yeah, usually it's duels, cutting off arms in a bar,
Want to buy some death
etc.
sticks?
But yeah, and stuff like that. And yeah, and you have them jumping around occasionally up to a high balcony. You have them getting other things involved, like throwing people off a balcony and the other person having to save them. You have them trying to her throw a knife at the barman, and uh, again having Indara to save it, which left her to a weak spot. So this again was using strategy to to help her eventually win because she knew she couldn't do it any other way. She tried throwing them, that was stopped by Indara. Waved her with a lightsaber. Um, it was when she went to try to get Indara's lightsaber out of her hand, she just stepped aside. It's like, yeah, and actually, May managed to work out how to get around that, and she knew enough of what the Jedi were about to use that against them. Um, And yeah, a very good fight, and one of the best ones. Or for me, it was the second best duel in TrekWars. But I think that is up there with the best of ones out there.
It was in my original top 5. That's why I sort of reacted like that when you said it initially.
I thought it was your number 2 pick or 1.
No. I can guarantee it's not. But it's only not in my top 5 because I wanted to make sure I had a couple of Star Trek picks.
Okay.
Because my first version of this, I don't know, like they're all very, very close, which is why I was teetering back and forth. But my first couple of top 5 scenarios were very, very Star Wars heavy. And I didn't want Star Trek to be too left out when there are a couple of phenomenal duels throughout the Star Trek universe too.
No, fair enough. And generally, I actually do agree with you. I don't want to give anything away from my number 1 pick, but at the moment, I'm 50-50 on my between Star Trek and Star Wars at the moment. So, yeah.
I would also say, like, I agree with you. That is a phenomenal dueling sequence, and a brilliant start to a series that I very thoroughly enjoyed.
If you want to find out more, we've done a review of that on this channel. So anyway, we'll plug that at the end. But
We shall indeed.
YouTube, you can find it. So, what is your number 2 pick?
So this has come up in a couple of previous episodes of ours, but you know that point in Phantom Menace where these metal doors slide open, you've got this dark figure with red face, black tattoos, horns, pulls out a lightsaber, ends up being a double-bladed lightsaber, and everyone watching goes, "Oh my god, look what he's just done." Yeah, that one. It's definitely.
You're going to need to help me a bit more.
Oh, boy, it's called Duel of the Fates. I'm surprised you've not heard of it, Ben. I'll stop. It's again, this one and my number 1 are literally neck and neck, but I had to put one of them at number 2. So I've picked Duel of the Fates as number 2. And you'll find out why when I talk about my number 1. But as I've said on previous episodes, it is utterly phenomenal. It was the first proper lightsaber duel we see in the prequel series. First properly, modern day choreographed, all flashy, different acrobatic moves, uses of force powers. Definitely a sense of urgency and a sense of danger throughout it. The musical score was utterly phenomenal, with every piece of instrument on fire, I am sure. It was absolutely stunning and utterly perfection in every single way. And as I say, it's joint number 1 really, but I can't have a joint number 1 for this, so it's number 2.
Fair enough. And when I was talking about May versus Indara in that fight, it's one of those ones where I was like, I would happily put it up against this one here, and I could not decide if this would be better or not than this. And for us, it's in this ranking, it's come joint second. So it's really helped me decide which one's better. I can't be outvoted by you on that one, unless it's my number 1 position. So
we're about to find out, aren't we?
Yeah, but that is a very good fight. It's a very good duel. 2-on-1, 1-on-1, 1-on-1 again. And
you've got to admire Maul's tenacity and again his intelligence and strategy there. He knew he couldn't last forever fighting against both of them, so he finds a way to split them up.
He was using his brain. It's like, you're not just going to stand there and not move. Otherwise you're not going to, when you choose your ground to win. And
Which is exactly what Obi-Wan does if you think forward to Revenge of the Sith. It's how he beats
Yeah,
Anakin, isn't it? Just again, it
yeah,
shows. It's a brilliant point you've just made because it just shows his character development.
yeah. And I know at least two of my picks. That it's not completely that, but like my Data Army and Mace Master and Dar one was two people having to actually use their brains to win and put the fight on their grounds, rather than straight out battles, which was like my Bo-Katan Axe one and my my Wolf Garon one, which were just straight up fights.
Yeah.
And I suppose like my number one was a group of people choosing uh, the way they fought, and they almost fought 3-dimensional instead of 2-dimensional. And this is going with my one-on-one. This is two ships fighting out for this one, and this is from the Raffican. This is the USS Reliant versus the USS Enterprise original. Basically in charge by Kirk and Admiral Kirk at the time, and Khan. Basically, basically, it was Kirk and the ship baiting Khan to come and get them in the nebula and fighting each other, and it was a event. It was your typical submarine venture where they can't really use their radar or anything like that, and moving around, accidentally knocking into each other, and eventually eventually Khan was going, my win is the way to win is blowing us all up to smithereens. But luckily, because of the sacrifice of the one, it was saved the many. At the end of that, and it involved lots of people. I'm going to say lots of people. Yeah, of course, it involved lots of people working together and in it to save to work it together, to keep it going. This is I think the ultimate duel between ships, in my opinion. Out of any of the franchises.
Oh, I can see why you've picked that. And I like it. You've used the same logic in a way that I used for the Titan versus the Shrike. But definitely, to my knowledge, it's the first time we saw Star Trek battles thought through and actually depicted 3-dimensionally, which is a lovely touch in that movie. And you see that replicated a little bit more deadly in All Good Things, where you've got the future Enterprise coming. Let's call that. I know there's no upwards in space, but basically flying upwards underneath the Negvar class Klingon cruiser that the Enterprise summarily obliterates. So and they must have taken inspiration off of the Wrath of Khan for that. It was very, very nicely done, and I love the Shakespearean nature in the Wrath of Khan as well.
Coming from Khan himself.
Exactly, yes. I'm a big lover of Shakespeare's works anyway, and obviously there's a lot of theatre actors in Star Trek. There's at least 2, I think, Royal Shakespeare Company alumni or active actors from it. Patrick Stewart mainly among them. But yeah, I'm starting to go off on a tangent again, mate. Lovely pick.
Thank you. It's for a while I was struggling to put that up to number one, just because it was just like does that really fit in? Yes, it does.
Oh
In
yeah,
my
it
opinion.
definitely does. 100%.
Now, what's your number one pick out of curiosity?
I think you can guess. It's the only one that could compete against Duel of the Fates, and that's the Duel of Mustafa between Obi-Wan and Anakin. And literally the only thing that peaked this to number one versus Duel of the Fates was the emotional hit that it gave me versus Duel of the Fates. So there are elements of Duel of the Fates that hit me hard, primarily Qui-Gon's death, but having seen the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin developing from the Phantom Menace through Attack of the Clones through Revenge of the Sith, to the point where it's all fallen apart, it just hit me in a way that Duel of Fates couldn't. And I was an emotional wreck the first time I watched it, so that's why it had to be number one for me. It's that classic one-on-one fighting thing again, but it's two brothers, which again makes it very Shakespearean in a lot of ways too, very tragic. And then throw in the phenomenal music again, the setting, the CGI, the lava falls and the base falling apart around them because the shields have been deactivated in the middle of the battle and all this stuff happening. It was just an absolute masterpiece. Even the costume, which their outfits just slowly getting more and more peppered from the lava spouting about everywhere. Every single piece of it was great. The full thing as well, I believe that it was not, they didn't use stunt doubles for the actual lightsaber fighting sequences.
If you're thinking about it, I think I can remember seeing their faces near as damned all the time.
The entire way through. Any flips or whatnot, probably a stunt double, but when they're actually using the lightsabers, I'm 99.9% sure it's Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor for the whole lot because they learned the entire thing. And it's the best lightsaber fight I've ever seen. The only downside is that it gets chopped up in that movie to go alongside another lightsaber battle, which is really good as well. Don't get me wrong, but nowhere near the caliber of this one. So yeah, that level of emotional hit that it gives me just has to peak it above Duel of the Fates, unfortunately. And then, as I say, you have the whole picking your ground to win the fight scenario. Obi-Wan had learned in a way from Maul in that respect. He chose the high ground. That was it. Game over for Anakin at that point. And
yeah.
You know what? Last thing to round off I'll say is, after seeing episodes 1, 2, and 3, watching the Duel of Mustafa, the aftermath of it, if you then watch the Clone Wars, and even Rebels as well, but especially the Clone Wars, and then go back and watch through those 3 movies again, and it hits you even harder, because as much as it's different actors playing Anakin and Obi-Wan, they play those characters so well in honor of how Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor play them, to the point that you forget it's not them, you believe these are the characters. It continues to develop their relationship and their story and their arc, and yeah, that emotional hit, it hits you even harder once you've taken in all of Clone Wars too. So I'm going to round off by just putting another call out to anyone, Ben, who hasn't seen Clone Wars yet. Get through that first season and a half. The first season and a half is difficult. It's tough. It's like childish blah, right? Then when you get through that season and a half, it becomes one of the best pieces of Star Wars media out there. Honestly.
I'll definitely
Watch
give it a
Clone
go.
Wars.
No, there's some parts that I really do want to watch, and it's just like, yeah, it's that journey to get there, which I'm sure will be fun when I
And that's the thing.
eventually get to it.
Yeah, you could find those individual bits and watch those episodes, and you could, and you'd get something out of them. You absolutely would, but you will not get the same things out of them as if you watch it the whole way through.
No, again, change the subject back. Is that fight scene? Duel is great. The effects on that. It is great fun. It is great fun watching that one, and sad at the same time. Uh, it's one of the best parts of that film, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. And you
Yeah.
knew it was coming as well.
Yeah. That's the thing. Obi-Wan would be estranged from Anakin / Darth Vader, and Anakin will become Darth Vader. So
yeah.
Anyway, what about the ultimate draw? Any predictions on the scores?
Any predictions on the scores? I'm gonna go with a Star Wars win. But not by much. Maybe by 2.
You haven't managed to keep count very well, have you?
No, I haven't paid attention at all. That was a total guess.
It was. No. Again, this is managed to equal itself out. And I haven't got a vote for this one from the poll for this one to decide. It's a 5-all draw. Not quite 2 in a row, but we've had another one like two episodes ago come in the draw as well. I think we've done 4 draws with one of them having a poll vote to decide. So I've got to make sure I keep up with that. But yeah, 5 apiece. At one stage, it was with 5 picks in halfway. It was 4-1 to Star Trek.
That's surprising as well, isn't it? When you consider again a duel scenario, you would very much anticipate Star Wars would outstrip Star Trek on that. When you think about what a traditional duel would be like, but then neither of us, especially for my first couple of picks and then for your last couple of picks, they weren't traditional duels. We kind of thought outside the box with them, which was very nice.
Yeah, and if I had gone with any of my honourable mentions, which I think are most of them apart from one, I would have tipped the tide, because most of mine that were close to being picked were Star Wars. And so, as I'm talking about those, let's go into my honourable mentions. So the ones that were very close was Obi-Wan Kenobi, General Grievous, like the hello there one. Also, as a little bit of fun, I did consider Finn versus the Stormtrooper in Force Awakens, I believe.
Yeah.
As a bit of fun one. And then this one was in it for so long until I went back through and went, there's too much else going on in the whole scene, and that was the return trailer from Star Wars: The Old Republic, which we've mentioned quite a few times, where you got Satil Shan and her master Kelson Derek, and versus Darth Melgus and his master. I was saying Darth Melgus. He wasn't Darth then, I don't believe. I'm not sure, but Melgus anyway.
Yeah.
And his master Darth Van Dissen. I cannot say it properly.
Vindictions, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
It's meant to be vindictive. It comes from the word vindictive, I'm sure.
Probably. And it's them basically having their own little duels again, and then becoming a 1-on-2 fight to let everybody escape. Almost a New Hope-esque escape. If it was just a fight, that would be in it, and that would be very much near the top, if not at the top. Scenes. And I suppose the only other one that I had and decided not to go, which is a Star Trek pick, were Worf versus Akateka, basically the last Jemadar in his imprisonment with Martok, Bashir, Garak, there before they beamed up, and it was like Worf would not give up, even if he was allowed to, even if it was the death of him, he would not give up. And the Jem'Hadar is like, I cannot wish this one. I give up. You win. And basically, the Vorta was saying, I'm gonna, in that case, kill them all. And luckily, for a last second beam out, everybody apart from the Jem'Hadar survived it.
That's a shame
survived
for the
that.
Jem'Hadar as well, you know. After, and don't get me wrong, he was not innocent in any respect, but he did concede.
Yeah. So I say, yeah, he has got a bit of honor. He has got honor to him.
Indeed, which was nice to see. Yeah, he was almost going against the Vorta there, which the Jem'Hadar strictly did not ever do.
Yeah, I think there was one other exception, which was the original Wayoon, which was shot, killed, and
yeah.
But that was that was after the mission. But that's a story for another day. So
indeed,
Olympus. What were your honorable mentions?
Similarly, pretty much every single original Star Wars: The Old Republic trailer. Which was so you had the one over Korriban that you described there. You've got the one in Alderaan where you had both Sutil and who becomes
Jace Malcolm. Jace Malcolm.
Who become an item at some point if you follow the books. But them against Malgus again. Then you had the one in the Jedi Temple, the Deceived. Yeah, that was Deceived. That one was called.
Deceived.
Between Masters.
Malgus.
It was Malgus and Zaro?
His apprentice. I can't remember her name. I believe they were an item as well, possibly. And I cannot remember the master's name.
That's terrible as well because it's part of T1's story. His companion stories. It's all
T701.
Zalo, Master Zalo.
Yeah.
Which again it was beautifully choreographed. So I had all of those. Star Trek wise, Enterprise E versus Scimitar, Enterprise E versus, can't remember their names from Insurrection, where they use the what do you call it? Those Metreon, the Metreon clouds to ignite, disable the ships. Enterprise E versus Borg Sphere over Earth in 2063. Yeah. That was very, very short, but very, very clever because they think, oh, great, that was quick. We got rid of them. What's next? Forgetting for a moment that these are the Borg they're dealing with. They're not so easily defeated unless you play Star Trek Online. And I remember back in the early days of STO when the Borg were bloody powerful. But that's a separate thing. There are other duels. If I go back to Star Wars, you know, the duel between Yoda and Sidious, the duel between Yoda and Dooku. You've already mentioned the one between Obi-Wan and Grievous.
Yes, yeah.
There was Ahsoka and Vader in Rebels. I think it was Rebels, that one. Which is a very powerful one. Ahsoka versus Maul in Clone Wars. People keep me honest there. That's off the top of my head. To round off though, a utterly hilarious duel is between Cal Kestis and a stormtrooper that we all know is Rick, the door technician. And I can't even remember where you are in this game now, but I remember the first time I did this and I burst out laughing. These doors open as you're trying to run to get to somewhere, And this trooper takes out a stun baton of some kind, I think, or a blaster, and he comes charging at you, shouting something, and you're thinking, and it comes up at the bottom with his name, big orange bar. It's like, right, boss fight. This guy must be bloody tough. Lightsaber out, one hit KO. It's like, oh, correct.
I think
Anyway.
I have not played it, but I think I actually heard about this in a review or something like this, and it was just like, yeah, the same reaction as you. It was just like, hang on, this is a boss. Hey, yeah,
Yeah, it's
why not? It changes it a little bit if it's all like really hard battles every time.
it's so funny though. I'm really glad they threw that in just as something to make you stop and have a little laugh at in the middle of a very serious sort of sequence that you're in. So yeah, that was nicely done on their part. That I'll round off my honourable mentions there.
Well, no, thank you very much for those. It's I'm glad we've eventually done this, and
Me
yeah,
too.
we've got to either get the polls back. I've got to get the polls back up and running, or
Yeah,
we've got to keep getting more guests on so we can not have that 5-5 split.
indeed, good shout. So Ben, rounding us off tonight. Oh, hang on a minute, have I missed something? No, I've not. I was going to say, where can we find you? But correct me if I've missed something, because I suddenly feel like I'm missing something.
We usually round off our picks, don't we?
That's what it
But
was. Thank you.
that's what
Right,
it
do
is.
that. Skipping.
Please round off your picks. So I'm just trying to find where I'll put my list to. Which I've actually managed to find it now. So my picks were Bo-Katan versus Axe Wolves in The Mandalorian, Data versus Karami in TNG, Wolf versus Gowron in Deep Space Nine, May versus Master Indara in The Acolyte, and the USS Reliant versus USS Enterprise in Wrath of Khan. And yeah, all different shows/movies as well. So
That is actually a very good point. Awesome. And mine's similarly all completely different shows or movies. We have Battle of the Binary Stars in 5th place from Star Trek Discovery, followed by the Titan versus the Shrike in Star Trek Picard Season 3. Then we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Maul in Star Wars Rebels, Duel of the Fates in Star Wars The Phantom Menace, and at first place, the Duel of Mustafar in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith.
I've got to check back at our scores, but see if we've done this before. But yeah, this is definitely where we've all gone in. Every one pick has been in a different show/movie.
Yeah.
So
Totally by accident.
but
That's
yeah.
cool.
But yeah,
That's
totally
cool.
by random. So where can you find us? So you can find me at TrekWars and Fantasy on YouTube, and if you're watching it this here, you can find me also on Steam, Twitch, sorry, where I stream. You can also find this on Spotify and on Trek and on Apple Podcasts, and another one where me and Olympus have done a review on the Acolyte first season, and that's under the Acolyte Review podcast on Apple Podcasts. You can find me on Twitter at TrekWars Fantasy, because there's not enough room for the and talking about I think I also have a TikTok thing under TrekWars and Fantasy as well. So that will be down here if you're watching on YouTube. Even if you're watching it on Apple Podcast, you will have all the details there. So, Mr. Olympus.
Yeah,
Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. Am I missing something? I think that's it. At Olympus oh, and YouTube. No, wait, I said YouTube already. There you go. At Olympus0511. Please don't put a space between the Olympus and the 511, otherwise you're just going to get a list of Olympus cameras. if you put it in without the space, you'll get me, followed by a list of Olympus cameras.
That has changed, because my one has changed a little bit. Please tell us,
Ooh.
because we might need to change our wording. But I know when I was doing it, you get a little bit more about Olympus. Usually when he's been a guest on my show, but or not my show, but this and any other thing we've done together.
That's the point, because you
via
tag me. No,
YouTube.
you're right, because I'm getting tagged, it'll bring those other ones up. Oh, there's a fair point. I might need to change that line now.
Yeah.
I've been using it for so long.
Anyway,
Brilliant.
so thank you for watching, and I love you all being here. Please put your lists in, any comments, or email them to us. If you email them to us, we'll rate them out. So there we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, guys, thank you so much, Ben. Thank you as always. It's been great. As Ben said, please get commenting if you're on the YouTube channel, and share your top 5 picks with us and your views on what we've just gone through on our picks. But otherwise, thank you for joining us. Take care, and may the force be with you.